What about I had this experience, I assume you probably did too, but what about the John 10 and 30 thing?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's another one where I sort of wrestled with a little bit, John 10:30, and that brought me to a place where I had to, I guess, study why Jesus would respond when he would say, "I and my Father are one," and they were ready to throw stones at him, and I really disagree how people, I guess, would say that's, the Father and Son one in essence.
Yes.
Now it was hard for me to grasp it at first because I really didn't know any other way to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess from a oneness point of view, I may have thought of that through dual nature again.
Yes.
That's always sort of the fallback doctrine. But I guess working through that, I began to see that that's not actually one in essence. That's what I began to learn, obviously with the context, but one in function.
Yes.
And one in purpose.
Yeah.
So
I began to realize when you say I and my Father are one, it doesn't say I and my Father are one person.
Yes.
That's not in there.
That's right.
But we are one, and as you say, as you begin to look at the context and realize they're talking about in function.
That's right.
In love for the sheep that Jesus is talking about in that passage.
That's right. Yes. Yeah, and so, just looking at some of these texts, troubled, I guess, the position of the oneness, the oneness doctrine. So it took a while for me to work through them. And especially later on when the Pharisees accused him, and I'm sure people would say, see, they accused him of being God.
Right. Right.
That's another, I guess, passage, that a lot of people jump onto, and I had to work through that. Well, they're calling him God there.
Yes.
But then, it was wonderful to hear how Jesus quoted out of them Psalm 82:6.
Yes.
And that's when I realized, okay, I think there's something more here to God. If it's going to be applied to Jesus,
yes, that's right.
then deity.
Yes, that's right.
And that's when I realized, wow, even the sons of God in the Old Testament, where the kings and so forth can be called God. It's a small g.
Interesting. Yeah. And if them, then certainly the Messiah.
Absolutely, that's what he said.
And it's interesting to me too, and it caught my attention when I began looking at that to realize he didn't say, "I'm God." He said, "You're upset because I said I am the Son of God."
That's right.
Not
that's
God.
right. That's right. Yeah.
I think Jesus should have the last word on that.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think it qualifies. He's actually qualifying it, and right. I think people just stop at those verses. You're claiming to be God. That's why we want to stone you, and then we're not going anything beyond. So, as I began to study those texts, I began to, okay, well, Jesus is qualifying something here. Well, he's quoting out of the Old Testament here. Let me go back and see what that means. Yeah. So that was helping.
Yeah,
getting through the problem texts.
Yeah. We have these things where Jesus' critics, are saying these terrible things against him. And for some reason now, we won't agree with his critics. We want to say they're the greatest theologians there ever were, I suppose. But we shouldn't really pay attention to the critics. We should pay attention to what Jesus was saying himself.
Yeah.
And actually, he rebuffed the critics in that case.
That's right.
He said, I didn't say I'm God. I said I am God's Son. And he is. He's God's human Son. Which is marvelous and wonderful and amazing.
Yeah.
Got the thing where his critics were saying, making himself equal to God.
In John 5.
And we have Jesus but saying, no, the Son can do nothing of himself.
That's right. And it just emphasizes how the Father is greater than the Son. But at the same time, the Father is bestowing divine authority to the Son, which shows that he's been given that right to function.
Yes.
And I think that was the problem with his critics, is that they didn't recognize that divine authority. They didn't want to acknowledge it was God-given.